I've invited a special guest on today because we're going to be talking all about Tudor. So I'd like to introduce Justin. Justin has been over 15 years in the watch industry at Rolex boutiques and then went on to manage a Tudor boutique. He's now going out on his own with his own company called Hot Horology, which we'll talk about towards the end. He's taken a new approach on the watch market and he's really kicked this off with a storm on social media. He's got nearly 4,000 subscribers on Instagram, 2,000 on TikTok. He's had Mr. Beast's editor helping him out on the content. He's had over 2 million views on various channels since he started. So Justin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
So we're going to tap into your Tudor background. One of the most interesting things about Tudor and its resurgence back into the US market is I think a lot of collectors think of it very much as an enthusiast brand. I know I certainly do, but I wanted to get your take on who is really buying Tudor, which Tudor watches sold well, and then which ones were that maybe enthusiasts thought were big hits, but maybe the general market didn't respond to them, and then vice versa. Was there any that that the collectors didn't like, but the market really did like them?
I've been in the watch industry since 2011. In 2012, the hype was all about Tudor, right? Tudor had came back into the US. They revamped the brand, brought back the Black Bay. Prior to that, I didn't really know much about the brand. I'd heard about it. I knew it was under the Rolex umbrella. But when they came back to the US market, they kind of revamped their marketing strategy, revamped their watches. They really came back with a splash. I've been lucky enough to sell the brand for quite some time now. And we have everybody. There is enthusiasts. There is some of my top clients who own very high horology timepieces, their Pateks, their Longas. They have their Tudors and they wear them for their daily watches. In the Tudor watch brand, it is something that I always personally recommend just because of the price point. So if there is someone newer that is into this watch industry and wants to purchase a nice watch, I recommend Tudor. I think they're very solid watches. The movements are great. Since selling them for years now, I haven't seen many issues with it, and they're going to continue to keep growing.
When the Tudors sort of came back onto the market, they really hit with the Heritage, wasn't it? The Black Bay Heritage, I think it was called.
Yes.
And then they had a few limited edition models. They had that Harrods limited edition model with the green. Enthusiasts thought they were larger, but did the general public that were buying them think that those ones were too big?
So the original Black Bay, the smiley dials that most of the collectors call them, those housed an ETA movement. And that movement was thinner. So if you compared the thickness of that watch to when they released the straight text models, they're slightly thicker, but it's negligible. That has always been a gripe for some people, but for most, not really. In terms of thickness, the only watch that I would hear clients complain about is the Black Bay Pro. It's a 39 millimeter with their GMT movement. That's a thick watch. And also I think because it's a smaller diameter, people are always complaining about that.
What would you say the split was recent years of the different types of Black Bay 58, and then the 54, and then the Black Bay Pro, and then the different variants of the Black Bay 58 as well? What was sort of the feeling? What were you getting the vibes that were the best sellers? Because the 58, when it first came out, seemed like it really hit the market with a storm, but was that right? Was that the bestseller at the time?
That's what I like about Tudor is they have something for everybody, right? They have the Black Bay 54, which is a 37 millimeter. The Black Bay 58s are 39. They even released the newest Black Bay 68, a 43 millimeter. I know that they're going to start hitting that larger segment more often. One of the last visits that I had when I was sitting with the Tudor president, he was asking questions about what people are looking for, and they seem to be going towards that larger size.
Oh, that's interesting. So when you were managing a Tudor boutique, you actually got invited to sit with the president of Tudor.
He's a phenomenal guy. One of the things that I loved about working with Tudor is the entire team. Or at least the entire US team. I've met some of the people from the Swiss office. Everyone is so remarkable. Everyone is so passionate about the brand. They believe in it. They're as nice as can be. He didn't tell me outright that they were going to start going in that direction, but the questions that he was asking me, and then the following Watches and Wonders when they released their product, it made sense.
You kindly invited me to a party, a Tudor party in the center of Orlando, wasn't it? Was it a Marriott or something in the center of Orlando?
Yes.
You actually managed to put all of the watches in a room in a hotel, which I thought was pretty cool. Was that a Tudor funded thing, or was that a Mayors took the initiative there?
That was a Tudor funded event. Tudor has been doing that a lot, especially in the cities where they're opening new boutiques. They've been opening them left and right. So that is definitely something that they're pushing. Rolex used to do events like this back in the day, but they stopped doing it. I think it's more so that they don't really need the advertising. They don't need the marketing. They don't need to have those parties because whatever those boutiques receive anyways in product, it's going to sell. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about that party was you actually were selling watches there, which I can't imagine if there was a Rolex party that they were actually selling watches there and then. But I remember the Tudor one because I only got to speak to you for 5 minutes because you were between clients, weren't you? I thought that was pretty cool. Well, let's go back to the Black Bays before we move on to the other models. Well, first of all, I'm interested to know about the gold one, but before we do that, out of all of the Black Bay models, and some of them haven't been out as long, but was there any particular colorway or any particular metal or anything like that was the best seller out of the Black Bay diver line? We'll say. I know Black Bay covers like a whole thing, but what trends were you seeing with the Black Bays?
I would say overall, the Black Bay 58 did extremely well. I think people like that 39 millimeter size. It's a rather thin watch. You can wear it really with anything because it's a good looking watch. It has the gilt dial. When they released the new Black Bay 41s, the burgundy and the monochrome, I think the monochrome is one of the top sellers as well. It looks identical to a non-date sub. It's great movement, master chronometer, and the black on black, you just can't beat it, with the white text.
I've got to ask you this. The gold 58 when it came out at the price point, I think it was it 16,000 or something when it came out. Did that sell? Can you say? Was there many of those that actually sold?
We sold one. This was when I was in Orlando. Right. So when that watch came out, we obviously really wanted to sell one. It did sit in inventory for a little bit. I would do like cool spiffs with the team and be like, first person to sell it will get dinner on me. We eventually sold it. That was when it did not have the full bracelet. Recently, they released a full gold bracelet. And with the price increases, I want to say it's like 38,000 now or 39,000, which is, it's pretty hefty. I never got to sell one of those. Neither did my team. I personally think it's a cool watch, but it doesn't make sense just because it's getting killed on the secondary market. You can find one brand new on the secondary for like 25, but it is a good looking watch, exhibition case back. The gold and green combination has always been one of my favorites.
Out of the other two, I always thought a surprise hit for the 58s was the bronze one, and then they also did the silver one as well. I know enthusiasts really like them, but did the general watch buying public also gravitate towards the bronze and the silver?
I'm pretty biased when it comes to the bronze because I own that watch. The boutique in Orlando that I opened, that was in 2022. That was only the second boutique to open in the US. And around that time, they also released the boutique edition. It was their first boutique edition, Black Bay 58 bronze. So I actually own that watch. It's one of my favorite watches. But that style watch, for someone to buy bronze, it's either someone who has never owned bronze. Maybe they've owned gold, they've owned titanium, stainless, never bronze. So we sold a lot of them to those types of people. And we also sold to a lot of like bronze enthusiasts, right? So there's like a huge community of like just bronze watch guys. They'll buy the Panerai Bronzo. They've got the 58 bronze. They've got all, Oris and all those other brands. With that being said, I am biased with the bronze. The silver was actually one of the picks before I actually bought the bronze. I personally like the silver, but I like the versatility of having both a bracelet and a strap. So that's essentially what drove me to the bronze Black Bay instead.
I know Patrick over at Pocket Watch Time, he's got the silver. I think he might have the bronze as well, but he's got the silver and he absolutely loves it because the way that they did the mix, it ages, but it doesn't tarnish like silver. Like you don't have to polish the silver.
Yes. No, it's beautiful.
Let's go to the Pelagos line. They had the blue, the black, and then the left-hand drive for a long time, and it didn't seem like they were really doing anything with them. And then, of course, they came out with new variants of it as well. So did the Pelagos sell well? And when the new variants came out as well, like the smaller one, the 39 one, and then they did the Pelagos XL or something. They did or the Pro version of that. How did that line sell? for Tudor?
The Pelagos does well, but it doesn't sell as fast as the Black Bay line, I would say, in my opinion. But I do strongly believe if one is looking for a professional dive watch, the Pelagos ticks all of those boxes. Ceramic bezel, the bezel's loomed as well, so you can see it underwater. Helium escape valve. It has a special clasp. It's the only watch in the collection that has it. It's like spring loaded, so it fits very well. But that style just didn't do as good as the Black Bay. But when they released the 39, that watch did very well, and it still does very well. To this day, people would always ask, like, when are they releasing the blue one, or when are they releasing a different colorway option? This past year they released the Ultra. That watch is a sellout. It still is. I think that watch is going to continue to do very well.
That's the one watch that when I go into the previous Tudor store that you managed here in the mall at Millennia, I always ask them, and they've never had it in, or they've had them in, but they must stay for hours, I think, in the case, because I would love to see that watch because it does look cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a very, very nice watch. I want to say the price is like $6,000. I mean, you really can't beat it. It's a good looking watch for a good price, especially if you don't want to go and wait years for a sea dweller or a submariner and pay double the price too.
I'm going to ask you about that, but before we do that, what's your opinion on the Pelagos 39? Do you think that's as close as we'll get to a Tudor sub?
I'm hopeful because this year marks 100 years for Tudor. I am hoping, I mean, it's probably not going to happen, but I would love for them to bring back a Tudor Submariner. I think it would be a hit. But with that being said, I mean, who knows what they're going to release? But currently, that is the closest thing to an old school Tudor Submariner, right? It's got the snowflake hands, snowflake dial to match, which is really nice. Yeah, currently that is the closest, I would say, to a Tudor Submariner.
I went to a place when I was holidaying in Tokyo. Found this store, and all it had in there was vintage Rolex Submariners and vintage Tudor Submariners. And seeing them in person, they were just so good looking. I mean, I know they wouldn't replicate the Tudor sub again with the snowflake hands, but they were just so good looking. I think it would be a huge hit for them. Maybe that's why they don't do it. They keep people anticipating what they're doing next. But you mentioned something about the Pelagos is a good option if you can't get a Submariner or a Sea Dweller. But I don't know if you can say, but was there people that had that mentality where they would go to Rolex first and then be told that there would be, hey, that you're going to be on this waiting list for a while? Although they don't actually say that. They say, oh, I'll put you on the list. But then the forums allude to the fact that it's probably going to take you a while to get one. Do people then come to Tudor? Is that I know we think that's a step, but did you find that? Did people like, oh, actually, I really want to get in Submariner, but because I can't get it, I've now started looking at Tudor?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Where brands like Omega, I think, are in trouble. Not just Omega, but then also the starting price points like tags and Longines. Tudor is like right in between, right? You can go towards that starting price point, or you can pay up a little bit more to get a nicer watch. But a lot of the Rolex guys, they're like, oh, well, Tudor's a part of Rolex, so maybe I'll just buy a Tudor while I wait for the call. That used to be more so an Omega thing, but Tudor is definitely stealing a lot of those clients, whether they don't want to wait or they will wait, but they want something now. Tudor is definitely the brand. Nowadays, you'll see a lot of Tudor boutiques positioned right next to Rolex, right? Some of them even have a pass-through. When it's right there, it's an easy choice.
Yeah, I will say that for the store at the mall at Millennia, you've got most of the brands there, haven't you? You've got Rolex, which Rolex just expanded. I think it's at least 3 times the size it used to be, and it's always packed. Tudor, always people in there. You always see people looking at the cases. But then the other stores that are almost completely dead in there is you usually see 1 or 2 people in Omega, and then Hublot is like a ghost town, isn't it? Almost in there. There's the only time I've been in there is the gentleman who manages the Hublot store. He is a member of the local Red Bar, so I've met him a few times. Super nice guy, but I've never seen anyone in there. Tag's always packed as well. I think Tudor and Tag seem to have really dialed into this affordable luxury, which I think Omega used to be affordable luxury, but now I think Omega's priced itself out of that affordable luxury. It's sort of this is a splurge, like an impulse buy. Got a couple of grand, but I don't quite know what I want. Whereas now with the prices of Omega, I think you have to really be thoughtful about what you're doing. You're not just kind of happening on an Omega and seeing something in the case that you like and trying it on. We'll talk about the Tudor Ranger next, and then we'll go on to some of the dress pieces, or the sports dress pieces, we'll say. I was critical of the launch of the Ranger because I felt like they really made quite a big deal about it. They had a countdown on their website, didn't they? And I think people at that time were thinking that might be the Tudor sub, the ever hopeful Tudor sub. They filmed some footage in the Arctic, I remember, and they were doing that sort of they had like the explorer vibe to it, didn't they? So they're associating like the Arctic conditions. We assume the first explorer Rolex went up to Everest. They did a sort of an Arctic thing with that.
I actually really like that watch. And also, by the way, people, yes, I work for the brand and I love the brand, but that, like, I'm not speaking just because I work for the brand. I truly enjoy this brand. You know, I've owned a lot of them. I personally really like that watch. It's a 39 millimeter. 39 is actually the perfect size for my wrist for most watches, but I love the simplicity of it. Hot take, if I had money to purchase and I had the opportunity to purchase an Explorer 1 and a Ranger, I would probably just buy the Ranger, to be honest. Yes, the Explorer it's a iconic watch, but I personally just don't see the extra value for a time-only watch where the Ranger does everything the same, essentially. Same power reserve. It has, in my opinion, I think it has a better clasp, and it's a good-looking watch.
The other thing as well that I don't think a lot of enthusiasts, I know Todd, who joins me on the live stream, we used to do a podcast together. He was a huge fan, Todd V. He was a huge fan of the Tudor dress watches, which were they called the Black Bay 36. They looked a bit like a Datejust, and he was a big fan of them. And when I've seen them, they're very impressive because they've got the Rolex Jubilee style bracelet, so we don't get sued. But they've got the Rolex Jubilee and the Rolex Oyster are, I think, the best bracelets I've ever seen on a watch that I've ever reviewed. I think Rolex is just magicians with bracelets, and Tudor got the Jubilee version of those. Would you say they were dress watches or sports watches? Sort of combination, aren't they?
They now changed the name to a Black Bay 1. With that being said, the Black Bay is still a sport watch, but in my personal opinion, with that 5-link bracelet, essentially classifies it as a dress watch. I mean, it looks very similar to a smooth bezel, non-date Datejust, I guess.
They really do look cool. Were those big sellers? Because I've tried to convince my wife to get the smaller version, or that, I suppose the ladies' version of it that looks really cool, but she's not a huge fan of it. But were those big sellers as well, or was it? Are we talking Black Bays were the main thing that people came for?
That collection did extremely well. We got a lot of the clients who are looking for a Datejust and also looking for an Oyster Perpetual, and then you can kind of guide them that way. Since they have multiple sizes, we were able to capture some of the lady audience as well, right? 31 millimeters. They did diamond bezels. You can do steel and gold. Yes, they did very well, just not as well as a classic Black Bay.
All right. Well, before we wrap up here, let's get into some spicy questions. Then, was there any watches that were released that you thought were going to be a big hit and they weren't, or was there any that surprised you? And I'm thinking of the Black Bay Chrono, like the pink ones and then the blue ones and things like that. Was there any that you thought were going to be, oh, this is going to be a huge hit, and they weren't, or was there any that like totally surprised you when they came out?
One watch that I personally don't like is the FXDs.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about those yet. Oh, good. Yeah, good segue.
I mean, in my personal opinion, I think it's a cool concept, right? It has the pass-through straps. You can change the look of it, but I'm a bracelet guy, especially for sport watches. So that threw me off. And not only that, but they released so many different iterations of the FXD, and it just felt like they were all back to back. And they started doing the chronographs, and some of those limited edition chronographs did very well. I would say if we had a Pelagos in stock, it was most likely an FXD, because that's catered to a specific client, I would say.
Those FXD buyers are really particular about I don't know if people don't know about the FXD, you might not know about the significance of the case engraving on the back is the year that the watch was produced. And there's a whole collector community around I believe the 21 version, isn't there? Because I think they released it maybe halfway through the year, so there wasn't an abundance of them made. So they're the FXD
MN21.
yeah, and then they even made, which you can't buy, can you? One that was issued to the Marine Nationale, the French Navy divers. I believe that those, I haven't seen one of those ever come on the market, but I imagine if they actually got one of those that was issued, that would be extremely expensive. They went sort of left field that I don't think anybody was expecting, but they went kind of left field and did the Red Bull versions in forged carbon. Were those big sellers?
Actually, I just heard that they discontinued those Alinghi Red Bull Racing models. At first, they did very well, but then the hype kind of died down for that specific model. But recently, I think they're probably all sold out, just because whenever they discontinue something is when all those like avid collectors, they just have to have it. I mean, again, not my favorite collection. It is a nice watch. It's just not my cup of tea.
We've not seen the longevity of forged carbon yet, have we? That as a case material, we haven't seen a forged carbon case that's been going for 15, 20 years and how it'll hold up. So that'd be quite interesting.
Yes, for sure.
So we talked about the FXD, and then the other one that I do see, I know a friend at work, JR, he's got one of, and that is the chronographs. Predominantly the black dial and the white dial, but they also have done limited edition ones, haven't they? The blue and the pink. So was that collection a big seller?
Absolutely, and it still is to this day. Tudor classifies them as one of their daring watches, which are their more limited edition pieces. Right now, there is 4 daring watches in the collection. If you come across one in the wild, in a boutique, it's just sitting in the case, buy it because it's extremely collectible. So those Tudor chronos are really, really hot watches, very, very quick sellers. There's 4 currently in that collection: the Flamingo Blue, the pink, obviously, the F1 Racing Black Bay non-chrono, and the newest Lagoon Blue. So if you're in a boutique or in any shop and shop and you find any of those watches for sale, buy it right away because they're extremely collectible. My personal favorite is the Flamingo Blue. I think it's a really cool watch. It's a good look. That's the style now. Like a lot of people like those bright watches, colors that you don't see often. And they sell out. Those watches are like Tudor's version of the Daytona, I would say.
Before we wrap up here, what have you got any predictions? You mentioned it's Tudor's 100th. Have you got any predictions or that you think they might come out with? I mean, I know the Tudor sub might be a long shot, but have you got anything that you think they might do?
So I have one prediction that I think is more likely, but my 2 wishes obviously would be that Tudor Submariner or a new big block chrono. I think would be really nice, and just scrap the Black Bay chrono altogether. I want to say it was for like One Watch, which is like that charity auction. They released one in solid gold. It was such a beautiful watch. Again, it's a long shot, but my prediction is re-release the North Flag. The reason why I believe that, when they released the North Flag back in the day, that was the first in-house movement. It was a short-lived watch. I do think that watch was ahead of its time. I think it would do very well too.
Yeah, it was iconic. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I forgot about that One Watch chronograph because they made the movement, or they remade the movement specifically for it. Maybe that would be likely, because it would be a waste of that, doing all that additional research, wouldn't it, or R&D on that. Justin, thanks so much for joining us. Where can everyone find you?
You can follow me on any platform at hot_horology. You'll also find a Discord link in my bio. That is where I have a private network, marketplace, and watch community. You'll find watches for sale. Please follow me. I've been diving hard into this stuff, and I'm excited to continue to keep bringing more content and watch education.
Guys, thanks for watching. If you got any questions, either send them to Justin on his Instagram or his socials. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Casual Watch Reviews.